Hmm.
Hi, folks. Welcome to Film Optimists, where we talk about all things film with a gluttonous amount of optimism. I'm your co-host, Seth Boyd,
I am Megan Tierney Flores.
and we are joined by first-time guest, I'm going to go ahead and say it, longtime friend, 4 or so years counts, Jeremy Blandin. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Jeremy is, I think, you are actually our third Wisconsinite guest.
Oh,
This is including Jim Briggs, who former coworker, friend. I've never met him in person. Also from Wisconsin, but from Eau Claire. So we're getting the whole state eventually. But welcome to the show. You are such a film cinephile, a fellow cinephile. We're grateful to have you on here. Tell us what you chose.
Right. So for my film, I chose Master and Commander: Far Side of the World, which came out in the great year of 2003. And actually, I had no idea, but this is like one of Peter Weir's like last films,
Yeah,
which is
it
wild.
is. It's its second to last movie, I think.
Yeah, it's like crazy. But yeah, I
Yeah.
guess to jump into the history of this film and me. So basically, through high school and undergrad, my brother managed a Cinemark when I lived in Texas. And with that, basically, movies were free for like 10 years for me. It was fantastic.
Nice.
And so, you know, a typical Friday night would be us picking a movie. And then, if there was something right after it, we'd kind of just hop, skip, and jump into the next theater and keep going. And it
Nice.
just so happened this night, all my friends picked the Brendan Fraser classic Looney Tunes Back in Action. Um,
Okay.
and then we decided to follow it up with Master and Commander: Far Side of the World.
ah,
And
wow.
I vividly remember like all of my friends basically immediately passing out in the first like 10
Really?
minutes of Master Commander because it was like
Oh,
an 11:30 p.m. showing and I was just immediately hooked. I
They
was
wow.
were
in
so
love with that
drained
film.
from Looney
Oh,
Tunes or
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But yeah, so I remember walking out of that and basically the next day I went and saw like a matinee again.
nice.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
wow.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I fell in love with that film. I was a history major.
Yeah.
I don't I don't currently use that major, but I was very much into the historical accuracy of that film, and then
Mm,
learning about how they basically rebuilt that ship like a one for one for the movie was really like I was hooked. So
Yeah.
nice.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Peter Weir because this is a movie. I think this was my recommendation in our very first episode, maybe because our first episode was Picnic Hanging
Really?
Rock.
Yes.
And so yeah, this was the second to last movie Peter Weir directed, and it was kind of I think he did
Mhm.
unfortunately a few years announced that he is just retired, and it's been a long time since he's made something. I think it's 2011. Um, Possible Journey, something like that. I don't recall. It was a fine movie. It was not as good as this in my
yeah,
Yeah.
memory. So, but it's still a pretty great late career movie. So, um, Megan, my first question is, did you watch this with your dad? Because this is very much a
Oh,
dad movie.
that's a Bob Tierney movie. I need to ask him if
Yeah,
he's watched this.
we
He'll
gotta get
he'll
Bob's
enjoy
corner on
it.
this. Okay, yeah.
I I sure will. I Maybe not. We were all born, like me and my siblings were born by then, so I think he was
Okay,
he was like busy being a dad basically
that's fair. Yeah.
to have seen this. That's a good question, but no, very much so a Bob Tierney movie. And I'm glad you mentioned Picnic at Hanging Rocks and Peter Weir was the name that like
Yeah.
you I was like, I know that name. Who is that? Who is
Yep.
that? And then in looking at the his like track list, he's a friend of the show here because
Hmm.
for me, I this is one fight. So I haven't seen Master and Commander. This is the first time I've seen it, but this is at least a
Hmm.
director that I'm a little bit familiar with, at least with some of his big heavy hitters with Truman Show, which was a really important movie for me. And
Yeah.
then Dead Poet Society as well as like one that I had seen that I think a lot of people have kind of seen. So it was nice to at least have a little bit of a background into this director and
I always
I
forgot he was Dead Poet Society.
yeah,
But yeah,
I just looked it up now just to like
yeah.
get my little bearings here, but so friend of the pod and like it's really nice to be re-talking about him since Seth and
Hmm.
I's literal first episode was about Picnic and Hanging Rock. So here
Yeah.
we are to talk about a little bit of a different film, but
Yeah.
pretty there's a line, a through line,
Right.
if we can say that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm excited to talk about it.
Absolutely. Great. So yeah, this is a movie I will just say I love as well. I think I watch this maybe in every year. This is also one of my wife's Anne's favorite movies.
Really?
And so also with you, Jeremy, she has like the history and the nautical history,
Yep.
like
Yep.
is didn't exactly study it full time, but like loves that, like
Yeah.
Moby Dick, anything like that. Like that's very much her wheelhouse.
Mhm.
Um, so this is a unique movie in a lot of ways, and I think we should come out the gate saying this is based off a book series of I think 16 or so books. Like it's a
Oh
very
my God.
long series. And this movie roughly kind of puts together like 3 or so. And there was the hope that it'd be a
Wow.
sequel, and it just didn't happen. It made a profit, but not enough for 20th Century Fox to say, let's crank these out, because this came out, I think, after Pirates, and there was a little bit of, well, maybe, you know, maybe we can sneak in here for another big franchise that is more grounded
Yeah.
for adults, you know. Um, but it certainly has had like I think it's critically been not just I don't think it was ever critically poorly received, but it still comes up often in film conversation. Like Russell Crowe still talks about this movie and how proud he is to have made it.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. It won a couple
Yeah,
Oscars too. I know that much.
I think
it
so.
did. Yeah, it won. I know one of them was for sound design, and again,
Yep.
I'm referencing
Mm.
the books. Peter Weir and the sound designers were very uh, thorough in rereading all the books about like how do they describe the wind, how do they describe the
Yeah.
cannon, you know, because which I think is a level of respect for the text that often gets ignored when you're adapting something, you know, of well, we have gunfights, we have ship battles
Right.
and that.
Absolutely.
So
And I
yeah.
think that had such a big deal for me too. I mean, especially going back to you saying like witnessing it in the theater.
Hmm.
I think
Mm.
one of the big things that pulled me in immediately is the opening 10 minutes. I mean,
Yeah.
the first shot after obviously the white text and the black background, but the first shot
Right.
going through the bottom like under crew and like the all the hammocks like swinging and the creaking of the wood and just like
Hmm.
Mhm.
literally feeling like you are on board this ship and like
Mhm.
Yeah.
it was for me right away. Like I said, I was hooked, and then you get into that first battle and cannonballs are whizzing past, and I'll tell you, surround sound, which
Mhm.
Seth probably doesn't know about.
Yeah.
No, surround sound. No, it was amazing in this film. So
We we joked that I've invited Jeremy over to watch movies at our apartment, and
Mm.
he refuses because of my
Oh no.
antiquated television, which
Mm.
is more than 10 years old. And I do have speakers, but let's
Oh.
get at this real quick, Jeremy. What is your
Mhm.
home theater setup? Because we don't usually talk about this. No, Megan, you are often just for logistics, having to watch a movie on your laptop.
Oh my God.
Um, and so we're outing ourselves a little bit here. My TV is a flat screen, but it is at least 15 to 17 years old. I generally don't know what any of the options mean, and so I don't. It still works. So there's like UV, UK, whatever. Like
oh my
it
goodness,
is absolute gibberish to
I
me.
should just start calling you
Uh,
Grandpa
Oh.
Seth. I swear.
you can. That's
Oh.
totally fine. I wear a lot of grandpa sweaters.
Yeah.
I just know
Mm.
that on new TV that like when I'm going to a relative's house or at a hotel, I need to turn off motion smoothing. Like I know that, and I feel like is there anything else I
Oh.
need to know?
Yeah,
Uh,
I would say that that's really become as of late not as much of a problem.
oh damn it!
So
I
my
thought I was ahead of something there.
I think my favorite stat here is you've had that TV for you said what 10 to 15 years.
Longer than my marriage and
Uh,
my relationship was yeah. So it's at least like 16 years old. Yeah.
Wow.
I think in 16 years I've had five.
Oh my
You
Oh.
know,
god.
yeah. So my current setup, obviously, I have just recently moved in with my girlfriend, so my
Yeah.
home theater is kind of currently.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah.
My home theater is currently in storage right now because until we, get a house or something along those
Mhm.
lines,
Sure.
I'll be able to because we're in a one-bedroom apartment now.
Right.
Sure.
But my setup prior to that was a 7.1 surround sound system with a 65-inch
Okay.
LG OLED, 4K,
Wow.
240 hertz, all that jazz. And but now currently in my situation, I currently have a 32-inch Alienware OLED monitor
Mm.
with
Mm.
240 hertz refresh rate, and I rock 7.1 surround sound Dolby Atmos like certified headphones.
Oh
And
Okay.
so
wow.
that's
That's
kind of
cool.
my
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
Because I'm also Seth knows this. I'm also a pretty big gamer, so
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
all that
It
stuff's
would be
very, very
helpful.
important to me. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
Right. And you're a gamer who does like online play, which I do not do. Like I just
Yeah,
I play
I
video
mix it
games to
up. I do
avoid
it all.
people.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Fair enough.
right.
Fair
But I
enough.
can understand you need like the speaker for like you're playing Call of Duty or whatever, and you need to communicate, you know.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. So
Mhm.
so yeah, I should just we should probably have it all just like the first episode. Take everything I'm saying with a big old fat grain of salt. If I'm
No,
watching
no,
this on
no,
a
no.
old
You're
TV,
fine.
but but it is, I think it's an interesting question with Master Commander because you were saying like it is not out on the latest.
Yeah, 4K Blu-ray, or it
It's
hasn't
not
even
on
gotten a
4K.
4K remaster, which
Mhm.
really
Yeah,
bums me out.
and I'm hoping for like the 25th or something, which I think is approaching. No, it's already yeah, it's coming up. We just had the 20th.
Yep.
Can we get the can we get
Oh
it back
yeah.
in theaters for like a
Oh,
weekend or
that would
something?
be awesome.
um, because I did not see this in theaters when it came out, but I did see it at my grandfather's house who had what was the 2003 latest and greatest, and it
Sure,
did blow
sure.
me away for all the same
Yeah,
reasons. So
absolutely.
That's good.
Megan, how did you watch this? Now we're on the
I watched
iPhone.
it. I was gonna say I watched it on an iPod Touch. Actually, no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
A video iPod. The best way to be.
The way David Lynch
I'm
wants it to be seen.
that's cinema, guys. I'm
Right.
very much joking. This is such a theater movie. Gosh, I agree. Even like this would be a great like orchestra playing
Oh
alongside the
yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Oh my
Absolutely.
God,
Yes.
I
The
would
score is
definitely.
great. I'm glad you mentioned that. The score is
Yes.
fantastic.
The score is, yet again another thing that I was on my notes to talk about because
Yeah.
Oh, good.
it's perfect. I don't know
Yeah.
how to
Yes.
explain it, but I mean the like the tie-in of Russell Crowe and Paul Bentley. I think I said that right. Like the cello
Bentley.
and the violin. Bentley, thank you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And just right there, like they're playing those songs, but the songs just fit. And
Yeah, they
then
Yeah.
do. Yeah.
yeah, and then just
Mhm.
everything about the score. I
And
I
the
love it.
score is
It's
the
on
other
my
thing I won an Oscar
Spotify
for, I
list.
think. No, sorry, cinematography is what I won for as
Got it.
Oh
well.
wow.
From Russell Boyd, who also did Picnic and Hanging Rock. And I think every Peter Weir movie at a certain point.
Oh wow.
No, sorry, he did not do Truman Show, but I should just
Mm.
note another one. Share a name of them, so that's cool. But yeah, someone who we worked with for a long time. Um,
Yeah.
so Jeremy, would you mind for those of us who need a refresher listening or who've not heard of this movie, give a description, a kind of a quick, what's the plot, and then we can dive in.
Right. So essentially, the plot is the entire movie. Essentially, if you think about it, takes place on one boat,
Yeah.
essentially, and basically on that ship is the crew of, I believe, Russell Crowe's Lord Aubrey, right? Yeah, Lord
Yes,
Aubrey.
Jack Aubrey.
And they're they're on the
Surprise.
the SS Surprise, and
Oh,
essentially
that's right.
the whole movie opens up with the essential, like the plot of, hey, like this boat's out here to basically sink, take, or capture any man of war or ships of war, and from there, it opens up with them basically on a foggy morning, and one of the shipmates basically sees a shape in the fog, unsure what to do. Calls over Russell Crowe's character, comes over, and shall we beat the quarters, sir? I love that line. And then and then obviously like they decide, maybe not, maybe not. And then all of a sudden, just the great scene of Russell Crowe checking the fog again one last time to be sure, and you just see the flashes of cannons, and that's when, in my opinion,
Yeah.
just like down cannons, and then you're like, it's just amazing. And basically they are
Right.
just completely caught off guard and get utterly wrecked. I mean, the ship is in disarray. They do a great panning shot of just all the damage that has been caused over this one pass through, and it opens up to now this cat and mouse of basically Russell Crowe and like his crew basically saying, like, we need to survive. How are we going to outrun this phantom ship that is faster, bigger, more like better than us? And it basically opens up from that, and from there, are we going through the whole
We don't need to go through the whole thing now. No.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we'll go into scene by scenes, but that was
sure.
perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think the only important thing to add for context is it's the Napoleonic Wars and they're in
Yes,
South
yes.
America. So they are like, I think they're off the coast of maybe Brazil or something that started this, but like they end up
Yep.
by the Galapagos Islands. So they go
Yep.
around the Horn. But yeah, it's the Napoleonic Wars, which is, the opening text has the iconic line, the oceans are now battlefields. Which I think I fucked up. Maybe it's the seas, but still. I will say also as a person interested in history, I did not know about this aspect of the Napoleonic Wars until seeing this movie. And so it's something that's really rewarding rewatching about like you think about what's happened in continental Europe,
Yep.
think about Battle Waterloo. You don't think about the ships at war at sea off the coast of South America. So
Yeah.
I think another kind of folks who we have seen this movie, you kind of know what I mean about to say. It's kind of hard to keep track of character names. There's a lot of ranks. There's a lot of
Absolutely.
there
It's a full crew.
Yeah.
You have, I think, a 2-second shot of a woman, and that's the only woman in this movie. And so this does not pass the Bechdel test. So it is a lot of men of roughly the same age that you'll see, except for the fact that a lot of the officers are confusingly, but this is accurate, much younger. Like one of the key officers who's bossing around people who are in their 40s and 50s looks like he's 12 and probably is. And
you got a hobbit driving the ship?
Yeah, I can never remember if that's Pippin or Mary, but either way,
Billy
that's not his
Boyd,
name. Billy Boyd, okay, thank you. But yeah, he's there. Paul Bettany. So then a lot of other like maybe you recognize them, maybe you don't, but they're really good. And I think that's part of the great thing about this movie is this does really look like an English crew of this era. So Megan, your first watch, I want to hear more about your first impressions, what you liked about this, etc.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought up Seth, Dear Sweet Anne, because a little like peek behind the curtain that I always remember about her. And I think we might have talked about it, Seth, but like we did a little bit of a preview for this podcast where we like ranked our favorite movies. And if I'm not mistaken, I think Anne ranked Pirates of the Caribbean as her like #1 movie. And I just like will never forget that about her. But it makes sense to me that she also mentioned Master and Commander because this to me, Master and Commander was like there were some shot for shot scenes almost of Pirates of the Caribbean if like the whimsy and like Disneyfied aspect of it was like pulled out of it, it was just like comical to me almost how like similar they are and like in a weird valley of where these movies came out, like in roughly around the same time. So I don't know what was in the air at that time in Hollywood or like why they were like really hardcore going for this, but just the way that they are pretty intrinsically similar was like funny for me because I was more of a Pirates of the Caribbean speed at that age of like watching these movies. But I enjoyed it too. I mean, I found it extremely immersive, like this type of filmmaking, and it's immersive to the point where like sometimes and actually pretty often I'll try to like think how did they film that, but I'm not thinking that when they're doing these movies. And it's a good question because of how immense the scale of a lot of these scenes are. So, but the fact that I'm not thinking about that at all, I'm just kind of in it too. I felt that way through the whole thing. I'm literally watching it, unfortunately, on my laptop for this film. So I can only imagine. I literally can only imagine it being on the big screen. But yeah, extremely immersive, like atmospheric and all of that. So I enjoyed it too. Gritty to say the least.
Yeah, I think gritty is a good word because like this movie feels very authentic.
Yes.
But let's do a kind of pulse here. It never feels gratuitously violent. Like, and there's some grim surgeries that happen here. Some like, we mentioned the 12-year-old. He loses his arm pretty early. One of the most intense moments in the whole movie. Paul Bettany, who was the doctor, has to
performing a surgery on himself.
Jeremy, your pick. Describe this scene and what happens to it.
I just
we're gonna hop around it. This is such an incredible scene.
Yeah, especially like the whole setup of just going back to the Galapagos, and basically like the line he gives is I do this by my own hand, like and just
yes.
You've got Russell Crowe there. And you've got the other guy who originally, prior to the I do this by my own hand, the guy who was supposed to do the surgery is looking at books, basically like going like he has no idea what he's doing, essentially.
Drinking.
Yeah, drinking and but the whole scene, I mean, with you know, having to hold the mirror, and Paul Glentley's like acting in that is just amazing. Just the facial expressions of, you know, going in and basically looking for a bullet in your gut, you know, and
Yeah.
you know, the
And having to
whole,
use a mirror to do
yep,
it.
having to
And
use a mirror,
yeah.
and you know, the one guy holding the mirror starts to look away and the mirror kind of turns, and you know, it's just it was, yeah, it was
Yeah.
perfect. And then I just to end that scene, they get the bullet, and the one guy pulls the patch of you know, cloth off the bullet, and he puts
Yeah.
it up to the hole to make sure they got it all. And then he's like, I believe he says like, should sew up nicely, you know, like, and it's just like
Yeah.
perfect, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that was,
Yeah. So
oh, great scene.
so there's scenes like that are like very intense, but they are not Tarantino. They're not gross.
Yeah.
They're not even like the Revenants or something like that. You know, they are not
Right.
gruesome, but they are. And I think because there's not the amount of blood that you'd maybe expect, it's more like the intenseness comes from the acting. You know.
Correct. Going back to
Yeah.
the 12-year-old who loses his arm,
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah.
shot during that is essentially his face.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
For both,
and it
almost.
basically uses
Right.
like, you use the sound obviously to, you can hear the, you know, the initial cutting of the flash, if you will, and then like
Right.
his face is, and his like his winces, and like knowing exactly what's happening.
Yeah.
Wild, but
Right.
again,
Yeah.
a great scene.
And a great child actor there in
Yeah.
that. So yeah, there's a lot of things like that that just work. I think one of the reasons I keep about this movie is definitely the crew dynamics, and the biggest and maybe the strangest is Captain Aubrey.
Yep.
Who's Russell Crowe, and Martin, who's Paul Bettany, who's the surgeon, are like best friends, but also
But they're also in the service together, and he
they're
is
in
his
this
captain, you know, like,
exactly.
yeah,
And
yeah.
Bettany is kind of maybe more of an anarchist and is bringing
Yep.
up points that I think are very valid, often, of like the kind of inherent cruelty and of a military chain of command. And Russell Crowe has to be like, it doesn't matter if you have a point where we're at war.
Yeah,
And we
yeah.
were out, you know, and like we have to maintain this. Like we can talk about this when we are back in Portsmouth, you know, when we're having a fight. This is not a conversation for us to have where we're in the heat of things right now. Megan,
And
how
I
did there
mean,
really? Oh, sorry, you go ahead,
so
Jeremy.
I was gonna say, you have that entire, you know, if we're just jumping around here,
Yeah,
you
we
have that
are
entire
jumping around.
dynamic of basically when the ship, like the entire crew thinks they're cursed because of
Yeah.
the first, I believe it's the first lieutenant, and there's that whole conversation of, you know, like you said, Captain Aubrey, and then the doctor, and even the doctor at one point kind of,
I don't think either. I don't know if they describe this to a carpenter, because like you have to have a ship's carpenter, and I think we see him a couple times, or how it works. But it is a hilariously detailed thing for these two. I don't know. That's always kind of a funny, just like sight gag to me. Like, I made this for you, and something was like perfect.
yeah,
You know. But most importantly, they get the increased rum rations as their rewards for
extra
this.
rations. Yep.
Well, and I like that the captain just goes, "And you sure it's accurate?" And they're like,
Yeah.
"Yeah." And it's
Exactly.
like, it's like perfect.
Right.
He's like, and then he just accepts it, like, okay, like that's great. I love that information.
And he's also like so excited by the hunt of, now we're strategizing. Okay.
Yeah,
You know?
and like when he introduces it to the rest of the like, we'll say, like, I guess, upper management of the crew, if you will, like, he's like, this is the future right here, and he puts it down, and it's like technology. He references it as like the future of ship and technology, and it's like, wow, okay.
I think, is it shortly after the scene where Paul Bettany also makes the biggest faux pas by just referring to their ship as surprise as being old. And like, it is just like, you could hear a pin drop of like, you don't insult anybody, like, you don't insult the ship, you certainly don't insult the ship in front of the captain, who's like, the most he comes to being angry with him, while also having to
and I mean, there's a great scene where Russell Crowe's like kind of reminiscing about the ship, and like, basically he's got his hand on this completely torched door frame, and he just is like, she's still in her prime.
They've had their ass handed to them, like, in a battle. You know?
And she's still in her prime, you know. It's just a great line.
I love that. I also, that felt very true to me of any military, whether it's, I mean, especially a ship, but a tank or whatever, like that's your baby, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I think there's a lot of this movie that is very endearing. There's a lot of this movie that is very like fun and like the battles are unexpected and like there's music during some of them, but there is you should watch this right after watching Pirates of the Caribbean or
It's
vice
so
versa.
it's so true.
You know, you're gonna have a great time of two very different good movies, but um just
Well,
to
I think
have that comparison fresh in your head
go
about like how is this shot by Hollywood, versus an Austrian
Yeah.
director who Hollywood let make this movie.
yeah, the comparison that I think of immediately actually is like the opening shots of both films.
Yeah,
With Pirates of the Caribbean, it's like a pan and it's got like the windpipe and it's like doo doo
yeah,
doo doo. It's
exactly.
got the pirates music. The opening season of the Master and Commander is like the wood cracking and the hammocks and
Right.
just like
Yeah.
being on board an actual ship, like in
Yeah.
this
Right.
the rawness of it. Yeah, so it's funny. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
crazy.
And because we're kind of getting into these movies came out the same year, I just have to look this up. So Pirates of the Caribbean, Chris Black Pearl came out July of 2003. Master Commander came
Oh, yeah.
out in November 2003. So these movies were definitely, I think, in pre-production or in production together at the same time.
Mhm.
I imagine Pirates started first, but like bottom line is the studio, 20th Century Fox had to have known Pirates was coming when they
Mm.
greenlit this movie. So, so I think there was definitely that like we hope that this pirate movie is big so that our movie is big.
Yeah. I wonder
Thing.
that's interesting because I wonder the thoughts behind the studios at the
Yeah,
time, like
because you can't
for
really call
both of
this like
them,
a twin
really.
movie. This isn't like a Wyatt Earp and Tombstone coming out the same year. This
Oh
is
yeah.
but
Hmm.
but they're similar enough that I don't know. I can also understand an audience being like, well, that doesn't look as fun as Captain Jack Sparrow and Pirates. So
Well, and I was gonna say that in no way is Master and Commander like stuffy to me at all. Like
I'm glad to hear that. Yeah.
it's very entertaining, like
Yeah.
at the same level. I mean, maybe it wouldn't be if you're like a 12-year-old kid, or
Right.
something,
Yeah.
but I found it extremely entertaining.
Yeah. No, I do as well. And I don't think I think it's PG-13 just for fine. Maybe it's only PG because there's not that much violence in it. But
Mm.
it's just that there's a lot of fighting scenes where there's not that much blood.
Yeah.
I don't think there's really any swearing in it or very limited. It's not that hard, but PG-13. Okay. That was hard to find than expected. Any other I think before we move on, we do need to talk about the ending of this movie. But
Yes.
which I'm gonna leave the honors to you, Sharon, if you don't mind. But anything else you want to talk about before then? Otherwise, we'll kind of go to the ending, then
Sure.
final
Sure. Whatever
thoughts
works for you
and
guys.
Rex. Cool. All right. So as we mentioned, there's a lot of cat and mouse in this movie, and there's a lot of also near attempts of Paul Benny finally getting to spend a while on the Galapagos Islands. Which also mentioned the 12-year-old kid who like loses his arm is also becomes pretty quickly assistant whenever this is happening and is pretty apt at is doing the drawings and is really excited to be a part of it. So this we have the memorable ending. So Jeremy, do you mind explaining, walking through our audience, the end of this film?
Right. So basically, the doctor ends up basically getting promised his time on the Galapagos, and
Yes.
it's pretty cool. The whole buildup of like him gathering all the cages and the 12-year-old
Yeah.
basically being psyched about going on this expedition across the islands. I think the whole thing was no, right, they were parked. But basically very excited about all these creatures they're going to discover, and they end up going off and for a while they're catching lizards, they're catching bugs, they're having a great time. And there's this scene where basically the doctor kind of walks up ahead over this crest, and the second he gets over the ridge, who's parked on the other side of the island but the Phantom itself. And the doctor knows, like, my fun's over, like we basically there's a scene where he's like, we have to drop everything, we have to go. At one point the doctor, coming off of this gut injury, basically he's got a pretty substantial limp, but at one point, like I don't know, the other older gentleman with them realizes, like, I have to carry the doctor, like, because we have to go. And so that is a scene where just the doctor's face when he walks over and he's just like, are you kidding me? Like, of course. Like
Yeah.
Thankfully, he has the presence of mind of let's open all the cages
Yeah,
for
open all the
Okay.
cages.
animals.
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
And they
very
scurry
much so.
away.
right. And so then you have like now the battle is back on, and then there is a lot of more fun surprises, a lot of more great Captain Jack Aubrey coming up with some subterfuge where they ultimately are successful in the battle, and then he's Captain Aubrey, Russell Crowe's character, is trying to find his antagonist, this enemy French captain, and he goes to their ship and sees the doctor who tells him he just died. You just missed him. He
Right.
just passed. And then in the movie where they're selling back off, another guy who I haven't talked about who's great has gotten promoted. It's very satisfying. He's going to take one ship, go elsewhere, and
It's his
they're going
first
to go.
command. Yeah,
They're going to go back to the Galapagos again, let the doctor fully recover because this is all over. And then Paul Bettany just mentions like, yeah, it's too bad, they don't have a doctor. And Russell Crowe's like, what do you mean? I met their doctor. He's like, no, their doctor died months ago. And they realize, oh fuck, that guy was not the doctor. I was talking to the captain who was posing as the doctor.
yeah.
And then the
He,
chase is just back on again.
yeah, because he was like, oh, I left you this sword. He wanted to leave you this sword.
Right.
But then even before that, there's a cool scene where the doctor's back on board.
Yeah.
And he's really bummed, and I think the 12-year-old comes up and he talks about a stick bug, and that's where basically Captain Aubrey gets the idea of like, the stick bug, the whole point is camouflage in its environment,
right,
to avoid. And that's where he comes up with the idea of basically camouflaging their entire ship to be a basically broken down like whaling ship. And
yeah,
they get rid of all uniforms, they like get rid of all the colors and everything. And basically it's, they light up the black smoke and they put up the white flag. And it's they know with the Phantom on the other side, they see this, and the Phantom's like, we're going to go in and basically take this ship. And
right,
it's obviously the name of the ship, the SS Surprise. There's that great scene where the captain's giving the speech, like basically, on my signal, like raise hell, and like when that's
yeah,
but same thing pretty
Similar.
much.
Yeah,
Like they get right up next to him, and there's the whole scene of just let fly, and then like everything turns different colors, and they realize, oh, this is a trap, and that's where the crazy fight
right,
begins, and they board, and from there
yeah,
we have our
yeah, exactly. Which is another fun kind of, I think there's a little bit of like, okay, see how you got this idea from the nature. I wanted to go study, motherfucker. Like maybe let
Yep,
me.
yep,
Maybe
yep,
this
yep,
science
yep.
that you keep ignoring has some merits.
Yeah.
But no, I love that the movie, again, you have this cat and mouse thing where you often have our protagonist coming up with something really clever, and it does work, and tell you it's also in a weird way satisfying of, oh, he actually had one pulled over on him again one more time and didn't realize it. And so the chase is back on. And it is a satisfying enough ending. Like there's not, you'll see these boys back in the next one credits, but there definitely is the opportunity for another movie that never came.
And the ending
It's not,
line, I love the ending line.
what's the ending line?
Because like
Remind me.
the doctor like kind of just realizes, oh, oh crap, here we go again. And Captain Aubrey looks at him and goes, doctor, you said this bird is flightless, right? And he goes, yes.
Oh.
Well, it's not going anywhere.
Right.
Oh yeah.
That's right. Yeah. I can't remember what's bird he's particularly interested in, but yeah, that is the last line of the movie.
It's a flightless gull.
That's what it was. So yeah, that's the movie, folks. As always, we didn't do it linearly, so watch the movie, you'll find out what we're talking about. All right. We'll go around the room here with final thoughts. Megan, do you mind starting us off?
Sure. If you want to watch Pirates of the Caribbean and want to see it the most historically accurate version of Pirates of the Caribbean, I would say check out Master and Commander. But again, not a dull moment in this movie. Like it really is it's extremely gripping. Like it's pretty it's pretty impressive to be that gripping and like that immersive. So I just found it really enticing, and it's a good it's again, knock on wood that the chance to see it as it should be, which is like a really big a much bigger screen than a laptop, like a really really good audio system would be wonderful for this. And check out the soundtrack by itself if you want something to study to or work out to, I guess. Like literally it'll make you feel amazing. I bet. So yeah, it was great.
Fantastic. Thank you, Meg. All right, Jeremy.
I would automatically say if you want to basically join the crew of the SS Surprise
Yeah.
through a grand adventure, a cat and mouse chase through what do we call it? Basically through the was it the Atlantic Ocean, right?
Atlantic to the Pacific. They go around the
Yeah,
horn.
yeah, exactly. They go around the horn. But if you basically want to be a part of this amazing story, cat and mouse chase, do everything from be a part of like, the crew and all the shenanigans that go on under the deck, on top of the deck, battles, great acting, amazing soundtrack, gritty, raw battle, naval battle, which is super awesome. I love this film. This film, I watch it probably 3 to 4 times a year.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where you get home and you just got a mood. The sea calls,
Okay.
and you got to answer. So yeah, I highly recommend this movie for anyone who hasn't seen it. And yeah, if you got a good sound system, a good pair of headphones,
Yeah.
wrap in. It's a good ride.
Fantastic. Yeah, I can't recommend this movie enough. So one thing I'm going to do is actually recommend watching it twice if you've never seen it before, because especially if you aren't too familiar with this history or nautical terms, one of the reasons I really like rewatching this movie is recognizing like, oh, I now know what that term means. Like I remember the first time I saw this movie, I was a kid, and they say we're going after man of war. Like what? I didn't realize that's a type of ship. So even if you are also that level of not knowing what a man of war is versus a clipper or whatever, this movie is very rewarding upon rewatching because it doesn't treat you like you're stupid. It doesn't overly explain anything, but it is upon a second, third, whatever viewing, you get a lot more details that you missed the first time just by understanding the dialogue, because it's not aggressive, but it does just give you the dialogue, gives you the terminology very straightforwardly. So, and I find it so rewarding and fun to rewatch. So Master Commander, one of the last of the great Peter Weirs, who's thankfully still with us as a living person, but probably one of the last movies we'll get for him. So check it out. All right. On to recommendations. Jeremy, as our guest, we will have to start with you. And it can be completely unrelated, it can be related to any movie. I shouldn't say any movie. We've also done books several times, TV shows, and more recently restaurants.
Oh, like recommendations of things to watch?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on a second. I think you know where I'm going with this.
I do. I think. I don't know.
Give me a sec. Give me a sec. Where is it? Is this it? No, hold on.
While Jeremy's looking that up real quick, we're recording this pretty shortly after our Star Wars episode dropped, and I've been corrected that I got something factually wrong about a really nerdy detail. And so, folks, I'm not going to apologize for a stupidly nerdy detail, but I am going to tell you, listen out for it and see if you also heard it, because I'm really curious if we can get some hate lessons from Star Wars fans. So if we can go rival, this is me. This is my most Star Trek over Star Wars take. But Jeremy.
All right, I will say I have two recommendations that are completely not even close to Master and Commander. My first is a 1999 made-for-TV adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. Listen to this cast: Robbie Coltrane, Whoopi Goldberg, Ben Kingsley, Christopher Lloyd, Martin Short, Tina Majorno, Gene Wilder. I am telling you guys, this movie. If you can, I think it is on Amazon.
Okay.
Go. What's up?
I had to mute myself from laughing because I should have known that's one of the things you were going to recommend, and which is like a movie you asked if we could do. It's like we can we find it anywhere? And so now, of course, it's on Amazon.
Yes.
Wow. This literally adding to watch list now.
Yes. This movie as a child, like I the best way to put it just completely opened my imagination.
Okay.
And like I would watch this movie and I would want to go write like a story. I would want to go like create a story, because like it was amazing. I feel like their adaptation of Wonderland was beautiful. Their characters are amazing. Everything about that film, and I go watch it now and I'm still like, yep, I don't care. It's awesome. So highly recommend. And then my second recommendation is more of it's not made for TV, but it's A Christmas Carol with Jim Carrey. And oh gosh, Seth, you're gonna
Mm.
tell me that I don't know the director. I believe
Oh, it's hold on. We're gonna get there. You don't have to look it up. Robert Zemeckis.
Robert Zemeckis' Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's a 3D, or well, it's an animated 3D film, but again, it's one of
Okay.
those movies I genuinely watch that in the summer sometimes because
Oh,
I feel like the grittiness and just the atmosphere and everything about that film, I feel like they just got so
Oh,
right. If you've never seen it, I highly recommend it. Jim Carrey is a great Scrooge,
yes.
I believe that. Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
I believe I'm God, I'm forgetting his name now. Who played Commissioner Gordon in The Dark Knight and Batman Begins?
Oh, I don't know this man. Give me a second. Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman
Serial.
plays uh uh
Tiny Tim.
no, Tiny Tim's
Yes.
dad.
Oh,
Bob Cratchit.
Marley.
Bob Cratchit.
Bob Cratchit, yeah.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But again, I guess because
Say
you got
Bob
so
Marley,
used
Meg.
to, yeah,
Sorry. Jacob Marley.
Right.
Jacob Marley.
that'd be a whole different Christmas Carol.
Right.
Right.
But no, just
Ooh.
again from the opening scene, like it's almost, in my opinion, just a darker, more really cool look at the tale of a Christmas
Yeah.
Carol. And
Thanks.
man, again, it's just one of those ones you kind of fall into, and you don't
Sure.
find yourself coming back up until the credits. So
Cool.
Okay.
I
those are my
missed
two
that one.
recommendations.
Love it.
Nice.
2 movies I have not seen,
I know.
but
Oh, perfect. Love that.
this is the year. Yeah, exactly. Megan, do you want to go next?
Sure. That was that was very, very off from Master and
Yeah.
Conan. That makes me laugh, Jeremy. But I'll do the same. I was gonna say, like, I do highly The Truman Show is like a really important movie
Yeah.
for me. And so I forgot that Peter Weir did that, to be honest. It's kind of like pretty different from his movies. So if you want another Peter Weir film, you have to watch Truman Show almost. I
Yeah.
love that movie. But then I'm gonna go completely off the rails too, Jeremy, so you're not alone here. And Seth and I had talked about this movie, but there's a really, really important movie out literally right now. But again, it's one of those things where Seth is right that these things are leaving the theaters fast. But I
Yeah.
got to see Freaky Tales in theaters.
Well, yeah.
So Oakland movie, fully shot and filmed in Oakland, and it's a with like Too Short as the narrator, and it's really, really crazy and little about a 4-part vignette, I think, which is like not super common, and so much fun. Like a really a heavy hitter for me this year, like I think for movies. So
Yeah.
Seth, you really got to see, everybody, I highly recommend to see it, but it was so much fun. I really enjoyed it.
Fantastic. No, I'm so excited to see that. I don't know if they had a full premiere in Oakland. I think they did because I know friends might have photos of themselves with Pedro Pascal there.
They
And
did at
yeah,
Grand Lake Theater, Grand Theater.
incredible. My Grand Lake Theater, my favorite movie theater in the world. Um,
Yes.
which Jeremy, if you're ever in Oakland, you have to go there. You would love it. They often have a live organ playing,
Oh,
and
nice.
which is fantastic.
Fun. So fun.
All right, I'm gonna be the odd one out, and then I have something dramatic to to recommend.
Sorry,
If
boo.
I,
I'm just kidding.
that's okay. If you want to watch if you do like costume dramas and you want another thing set
Mhm.
during the Napoleonic Wars, by far my favorite Stanley Kubrick movie is Let Barry Lyndon. I say this, I'm really want to emphasize from folks who haven't listened before, I've forgotten, I don't really like Stanley Kubrick, but I love this movie. There's like 3 or 4 movies out of a much longer career that I think are fantastic, but this is the one I rewatched the most. It is a great movie about a made-up loser who gets involved in the Napoleonic Wars. It is epic. Kubrick was as obsessive as ever in making a movie, including really actually going into museums and getting sometimes actual costumes from this era. This is more continuity year. It's been an Irishman who a lot of weird shit happens to him, fortunes raised and lost, but ends up fighting the Napoleonic Wars, and it's a major plot point about it. So if you're just kind of more interested in this period of time and you want to watch another movie
Mhm.
with the same attention to detail, I don't think there's anything that's on the same scale other than Barry Lyndon. So, and Ryan O'Neal's fantastic, and an actor who I think had some major roles that I think is a little bit of underrated actor, but he's so good in this. This is a strange guy who we don't make movies about this type of loser anymore. He is a jerk. He is selfish. He's very hot-headed. It is his downfall. One rare times he tries to do something good, it leads to even more ruin. And he is just this idiot character who often falls upward and often not. But it's a captivating movie that I love. I've read the book as well by Lord Thackeray, I think. So recommend both those if you want more of this era. All right, folks. Thank you for coming all the way back in time and down to the Horn with us, with Master and Commander, Far Side of the World. We hope you watch this. We hope you like it.
Absolutely.
Jeremy, thanks so much for coming on.
Yes.
Thanks for having me. This is a blast.
Bringing this movie to us, and you're passionate about it. It's always, that's the best part of like us having guests sometimes, honestly. So it's really
Absolutely. Cool. Yeah. We hope to have you back on again. And Megan, I'm just gonna say this because it's in the episode. We have to do the Truman Show. That might be one of our next episodes.
Oh, that'd be great.
Love that movie. So
nice.
And that's also a movie we've talked about doing an episode about since our first episode. So
probably,
very cool.
I'm sure.
The year Weir. All right, folks. Take care.
Thank you.